those of you who've stuck with us from session 1 on Brazil through session 5 on South Africa, I salute you from the bottom of my heart. Now, we are going to do the same format again. This time the focus is very much South Africa. Again, we've got 2 great panelists who I shall introduce in a minute. But I think I'm right in saying, I hope I'm right in saying, that to get our intel report, our sort of market overview, Leslie Vella is very kindly going to make one more guest appearance to talk us through the South African travel and tourism market and outbound travel potential. So take it away, Leslie.
Thank you very much. I was going to say last but not least, but to an extent it's also last and least in terms of this market. It's compared to the 4 giants we've just been discussing, this is a very, very small 5th market, which as the figures I will be sharing with you will be showing, has some very different realities from what we have been seeing so far. So basically we're talking about a much smaller population of 50 million, 24th largest country in the world, GDP of 2,900 billion, which makes it a world ranking of 29th. Economic growth of about 2.6% this year, slowing down, but the trend for the next few years forecast at around 4.1% per annum. GDP per capita, $8,100 US, 72nd in terms of world ranking. So a much smaller economy in almost all respects. Just some highlights, I won't be going through all this text. It's, as I said already, much smaller than all the other BRIC economies we've been discussing. Population was growing quite strongly until the 1980s, but is stabilizing at about 0.4% per annum within the next 2 or 3 years. And once again, we've seen it with all the other presentations, it's an aging population. It was growing at around 5.5% per annum until 2009 in terms of the economy. Slowed down post-2009, recovered in 2011, expected to slip to 2.6% in 12. Medium-term trend being forecast by the IMF of about 4.1% per annum to be attained by around 2015. Economic growth has not yet approached what the other BRICS nations are reporting. GDP per capita higher than that of India and China, not much lower than that of Russia and Brazil. However, we're talking averages here, and what interests us from the tourism perspective is the distribution of income. There is a high level of income inequality in terms of income distribution. However, from the tourism perspective, it means that once you have this inequality, there are pockets of the population who have much more than the rest, and that is very interesting to us from the tourism perspective, obviously. The fortunes of the currency, the South African rand, have had an impact on outbound travel from South Africa. It had collapsed from 7 per US dollar to about 11 in 08, comparing 08 to this year. However, it has been showing also some signs of recovery, but generally there has been a decline of the rand with the dollar, less dramatically with the euro and sterling, which basically implies that the purchasing power of the South African client vis-a-vis Europe, UK and US is declining, which has an impact, a negative impact on tourism, obviously. Number of trips, much smaller than what we have been seeing. 4.3 million outbound trips in 2007. The 2009 decline, which was common to almost everyone. Up to 5.5 million trips in 2011, although 12% down in the first half of this year in comparison to last year. Spending from 3.9 billion in 2007 up to a peak of 5.6 billion in 11, in 2010, going down to 5.2 billion in 11, and a further 19% decline so far this year in the first half of this year. Outbound travel has slowed down considerably in general. which is linked to growth and also linked to the strength of the currency. So that has been a major influencing factor. Air travel remains, particularly for long haul, the most popular mode of transport for obvious reasons because of distance. Europe's share is around 10% of total outbound trips. So it's substantial, but also reasonably small. UK used to have much more in terms of South African travelers, 351,000 in 2006, which had generated 5.8 million overnights. However, this has declined by over 45% in the past 5 years to 194,000. So from 350,000 to less than 200,000 South Africans holidaying in the United Kingdom. And again, another common factor which has been raised with other markets earlier, it's this time around the imposition of visa also emerges as a very important factor to limit such flows. So it's currency fluctuations, overall economic problems, and also the introductions of visa for the United Kingdom in particular. Market size, so we're seeing a market which has stagnated, or even in the case of some destinations even declined, to the extent that a number of countries have closed down their presence in South Africa. However, the good growth potential still remains, subject to the nature of visa restrictions, how much tougher or how much easier they are made to be. Coach tours remain popular, particularly with first-time visitors, but from the European perspective, the size of the market is nowhere near, say, US inbound to Europe, Canada inbound, or Australia inbound. It's much smaller. FITs who buy English language coach tour series are an interesting type of traveler. Self-drive trips. South Africans, we're seeing that there's a mix of ones who like packages, but also others who are more adventurous. In terms of what they do when they travel, they enjoy meeting local people. They like to visit cultural and historic sites. Again, I think a parallel with Brazil, a country with impressive scenery and nature, but very little in terms of history as we know it in this part of the world. But they also like to visit natural beauty spots and gardens, European capitals, regional cities, etc. And they're also very, very interested in a variety of sports activities and sports events. Visas, one of the major advantages which the UK used to have over continental Europe was a visa advantage, but that situation seems to have been inverted, because from what is reported, the current UK visa regime has actually become tougher than the Schengen regime. And it also impacts certain specific type of travel. For instance, public sector travelers who would be traveling on government business, since the South African government only pays for a maximum 3-week visa. They are avoiding traveling to the UK, but transiting through other European countries to go to North America and the Far East, because it's easier to get a visa within the budget which the government imposes. Number of flights and seat capacity, pretty stable, although also some marginal reductions, but nowhere near the volume that we have seen. We're talking about 120 flights per week in 2007 that declined to 113 currently, and one-way direction capacity from 38,000 seats down to 36,000 seats per week. British Airways, South African Airways, Virgin, Lufthansa, with Joburg and Cape Town the most important departure points. So by 2016, the forecast, in terms of forecast, we're talking about 6 million departures from South Africa. There seems to be an interesting shift as South Africans increasingly travel closer to home. Places like Botswana, Swaziland, which do not require long-haul travel, obviously. However, a lot is dependent on the value of the currency, on the value of the rand. If it falls further, it could have an impact on the purchasing power of the South African traveler. And there are economists who argue that the rand should be devalued to make the South African economy more attractive for foreign investment, but that would have an inverse effect on outbound. Visa, as I mentioned, both for UK and Europe, cumbersome visa requirements could make them less attractive. Internet penetration emerges as very low. In fact, it is only forecast that by 2014 there will be 9 million users, which means 20% of the population. And a lot of them, a lot of those will only have access from work rather than from home. And as a result, as is to be expected from a country where internet penetration is relatively low, online travel booking is still in its infancy. That's, I think, as far as I had to say, and I hope you found it interesting.
All right, Leslie, thank you very much. Leslie, do you want to join us? Why not? Let me introduce our two members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen. Right next to me, we have Susan Thesen, who works for a company in the travel industry called British Tips. And you're just going to start, I hope, Susan, by telling us what the acronym TIPS stands for.
Travel Information Package Service, which is a bit of a mouthful.
So what are you really?
A bespoke tour operator.
A bespoke tour operator.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, and we'll get into it in a sec, but next to Susan is Rami Mashini, who, you're with Gulliver's Travel Agency, Rami.
Yes.
And how big an operation does Gulliver's have in South Africa?
We operate in the 3 major cities at the moment, Cape Town, Joburg, and Durban.
Okay.
Despite all the...
Well, you know, I know what you mean when you say despite all... that was, no offense, Leslie, but the most downbeat presentation by far of all of them on the 5 emerging, powerful new economies. Is it because actually, let's be honest, you two, is it because South Africa doesn't really belong in this company? Is South Africa truly not actually a particularly positive economic story and not really a powerhouse economy, and therefore not in any way to be compared in terms of potential with the other countries we've talked about today?
To be fair, for the past 3 years we've been seeing an organic growth. We're talking about 8 to 12% in terms of the outbound. Yes, Europe is going down, UK mainly. We're talking about the visa. The visa to the UK costs 2,000 rands.
What's that in dollars?
It's about 200.
Yeah, about 200.
Yeah,
About $200 US
under
to get a visa to the UK.
Where the Schengen is 800. So it's about
So
$80.
it's less than half.
Well, as of today, it's 1,210 rand for the UK visa, 619 for the Schengen.
Okay,
so it's
you're
double,
talking about
double the
50%.
price.
UK's double.
And I can see that from the trends, because today, as Gulliver's, my top 3 destinations, I would say France, Italy, then the UK.
Really?
Now.
And UK used to be number 1?
Yes.
By far?
By far. By far. We've seen different trends at the moment. I mean, experiential travel has been extremely important for South Africa, not only sports, but if, musical concerts, rugby, they travel. South African travel with credit. You have a credit card, you can get a visa, they travel. So I think the ability to travel is becoming better. We need to move certain barriers of it.
But according to Mr. Downbeat over there, Leslie, more and more South Africans, maybe because of the economic climate in your country, are looking at shorter haul travel. They're more interested in going to attractive African destinations.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of stopovers. I mean, because I'm based in Dubai and we have a big operation in Dubai, we've been trying to sell Europe via Dubai through Emirates Airlines, for an example. And you can see that it is improving. I mean, maybe our operation is not as that big at the moment. It is still an emerging market for us. But the growth is quite healthy, and I can see internet travel is becoming faster online, 1 stop, sometimes 2 stops. And the good thing about the South African travelers, the average length of stay is around 12 days. So it is.
Once they're here, they feel they want to.
Yeah, because it's a long haul as well.
Yeah.
You won't be doing a long weekend. So I can see there is a lot of potential to improve. But we need to make it easier.
But also, of course, it's Southern Hemisphere. Does the reversal of winter and summer work well in terms of European operators wanting to bring South Africans over to Europe, or not really?
I think it does. It does. But again, if there is, I'm more with the experiential travel at the moment, because you can see a lot of trends moving towards, regardless of the weather.
But I mean,
yes,
I'm guessing most South Africans who decide to come to Europe would prefer to come to Europe in the European summer.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there are so many who want to enjoy the beauties of fog, rain, snow.
Absolutely.
You'll be surprised.
But therefore, so your peak season for bringing South Africans to European destinations is your winter.
Yeah.
June, July.
Yeah.
It's also our longest school holiday outside
Right.
of December.
Okay. All right. So Susan, give us your, I mean, again, were you a bit depressed by Leslie's presentation? Did it seem to match your own experience or not?
To an extent, the problem with the visa is one understands why they've instituted. South Africans have always had to have Schengen visas, so the visa in itself shouldn't be such a big issue. It's the expense. As I said, I got the price from the office this morning, and it literally is double the price. The other thing that the Schengens do, if you're traveling with somebody on a Schengen visa, your partner or a child, your visa is in fact free of charge. You still have to get it, but it's free of charge. So already you're looking at a...
And that's not true in the UK?
It's not true for
Kids
the UK.
pay the same price as adults?
Kids pay the same price.
Wow.
So for a family, you're looking at 5,000 rand
I
for
don't know if
visas
anybody's
before
here
you
who
start.
can react to this in the audience, but it's a disaster. Why would any South African want to come to England, Britain anymore?
Well, at 5,000 rand for your visas before you start. So it has made the UK a very expensive option. And it's offended a lot of South Africans as well, obviously.
Sure, I'm sure. And is it every trip you make, you can't get a multiple entry? Or?
No, you can. You can get a 6 month, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, or 10 year.
Okay.
But if you're not somebody who travels regularly, then you end up needing to get a 6 month visa kind of every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I cheated. I got a 10 year, so I fought with them once, and I had
But and that's presumably much more expensive.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously there is a visa issue. Just in brief, I mean, I don't want to, again, I don't want to sound like I've got very stereotypical views, but what I'm interested in South Africa, obviously it's a country that's changed enormously over the last 20 years. And, the profile of the middle class has changed, and frankly, one of the most important trends is the rise of a black middle class, empowering, the majority black population. So the question is, are South African blacks, the black middle class who have some spending money, are they interested in and actively looking at holidaying in Europe, for example?
They are, but they actually, as unfair as it is, get put through tighter hoops than your average white South African.
Are they?
When there's a visa dispute, inevitably, unfortunately, it's the blacks, and they're often denied boarding, even though they've got the visa at the time of boarding.
So you'd have to be such a total, determined, enthusiastic visitor to the UK to want to go through this if you are, a black South African wanting to take your family on the first holiday to Europe. You've really got to want it very badly to go through all this hassle.
You do. But there are more and more of them that do, and of course sport is a big draw card. We're finding more and more of them are actually coming over just to come and watch Premier League matches.
Right.
That's actually my biggest, the corporate market.
Is it really?
And the sporting market for the blacks.
Is it? It's amazing because I know I visit Africa quite a lot, and you've got so much Premier League football on your TV that you think it's hardly worth coming because you can watch virtually every game live on Star Sport.
Come on, it's much more exciting live, you've got to admit it.
Super Sport. Well, I suppose so. But and is that something you're seeing too?
In our case, I think the black Africans travel more in groups than smaller individuals. I'm more focusing on the FIT travelers, but I can see that with the other segment, it's more with bigger groups. We're talking about maybe 2 or 3 families.
I'm sorry, I saw that FIT acronym on the board. I didn't even know what is FIT?
Foreign Independent Traveller.
Foreign Independent Travel?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So you're saying that the sort of the new South African traveller who has the income to support travel for the first time is probably going to be looking more at group travel. It's the older and more experienced travellers.
We've noticed that with the black African, they're traveling more in groups, while more than the white Africans.
Right.
So they go more on organized groups and 2, 3, 4 families.
Yeah, I mean, we've been a bit low-key in this South Africa session. Are you too optimistic about the future?
I'd like to be. That's what I'm doing. It's the
Yeah,
market
but
I
we're
sell.
wanting to be and actually being are two different things. I mean,
No, I think I am because, let's face it, with the whole colonial ties and things, no matter what hoops they put us through, South Africa, I think, will always stay faithful to the UK. They're just going to moan, and there's going to be dips every time something happens, like now. But they'll adjust to it, and the market will pick up again.
Rami, are you an optimist right now? Or
Absolutely optimistic.
Yeah?
Extremely. I think the future is in Africa. Maybe not in Europe case, but I think Africa to Africa business is improving extremely well. I think there is a great potential to grow to different destinations as well. Being, I would say, a fair player down in the 3 cities, and I'm growing with an average between 8 to 12% year on year. We're investing more, we're adding more people, we're adding more properties down in Africa as well, because the Africa to Africa business, I would say, for the coming 5 years will
that's where growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I must say, I in my job, I travel quite a lot, and I've spent a lot of time in Africa in the last few months, in South Africa, in Kenya, in Nigeria. It just seems to me from the stories you're telling me and the situation vis-a-vis South African travellers coming to Europe and particularly the UK, we're missing, over the next 10 years, we may well be missing a huge
having the fact that they are very last minute, because, the window for the booking is less than 20 days. As I said, they do travel on credit. They want to see, a lot of musical concerts. So there are a lot of potentials, but we need to try and move some barriers in order for us to sell.
Sure. Well, we're almost out of time, but I would like anybody who's got a question about South Africa, the way the market works. Good. We've got 2 gentlemen who've got their hands up, so go for it, gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is Mashilo. I'm from Limpopo Tourism Agency in South Africa. The report that was depicted there showed only outbound, picture.
Yeah.
So there was no any reflection about inbound. And as a result, ourselves participating here would have wanted to see that kind of a picture, also to check as to whether the UK clients, are they interested in doing a long overhaul or not? Thank you.
You mean looking at the picture of UK tourists coming into South Africa?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess our main focus today was on outbound travel from these emerging economies particularly into Europe. But I mean, in brief, what are you seeing in the trends from UK into South Africa?
Well, I see the inbound to South Africa, not only from the UK. I see a lot of improvement. I think you've done a great job with the World Cup. This have given a lot of potential for more travelers, and we as Gullivers are investing a lot in contracting more African properties around South Africa. There is a lot to offer. And again, we do have some growth as well into South Africa, not necessarily from Europe, but first of all, I think your first source market in South Africa would be Africa itself. You have a great things. The limitation on certain properties in certain cities is still a barrier as well, because Europeans like to travel. They would like to read, understand where they're going before, so they go more on fixed tours. And I see the long haul is maybe dropping that segment a bit.
All right, and so you had a question too.
My name is Eddie from South Africa. I represent the Hospitality Association, which is called Thesen. One of the things which is a concern, it goes back to the visas. About 3 weeks ago, I wanted to go to Madrid to the UN WTO meeting. I bought a ticket via London.
Probably a big mistake, but...
Believe you me, it was the biggest mistake.
Really?
I had to go and buy another ticket so that I go via Frankfurt.
Really?
Now, it's even a mission to get a transit visa.
It's unbelievable.
The second point is the processing period. I mean, Steve Jobs, with the technology, he has been there. How in earth does it take 15 days to process a visa?
Yeah.
I just don't understand that. And this is one of the leading nation in the world, but 15 days. I think something needs to happen. Either we get the transit visa to be processed, even if it's at the airport. I think in Dubai you get things like that quicker. You tell the guys that I am not going to go to the shop. Still, you can't get. I think something needs to be done.
Well, I
Thank you.
have deep sympathy with that sentiment. Obviously, unfortunately, it's beyond my pay grade and my gift to do anything about it. But does anybody believe anything will be done?
I doubt it, but the thing is, that's also what's costing a lot of your higher-end traveller often wakes up on a Thursday, oh, there's a match on Saturday, let's go, or it's Christmas next week, let's go, and they can't.
No,
and you're losing your big money clients like that.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the room who would agree with you, and obviously the UK government has to make a decision. Is this, the legacy they want to leave? I don't know.
If I can make him happier, it takes sometimes 3 weeks for other nationalities, so 15 days at the moment, to be fair. And I think this is something globally that needs to be done.
Sure.
In certain countries, you're not even allowed to apply for the visa. You have to send it by DHL or by courier and wait. We as tour operators and travel agencies need to give you a voucher, which 90% is fake, saying that you're staying 2 nights in London. We don't know if you're going to stay, because if I book you, you will end up paying cancellation charges. So I would say that there is a major
I think
challenges.
There clearly is. Sorry to cut you off, Rami, but we've got to have one last comment, and then are there 2 of you wanting to comment, or 1? Yes. Well, madam, no offence, but you've had quite a few comments. Let's get the gentleman to comment, because it's going to have to be the last one, because we're out of time. So.
No, thanks. I'm Zed Luzipo from South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal Tourism and Shark Sport. I won't talk about the observation that I've made. I think there is one part to me that is additional. Probably it's a general observation about Europe, specifically the UK. I think if the trend that seeks to suggest that there is a demand from outside to come to UK, if that mentality or perception does not get out, because generally there is the perception that UK in particular, without making an effort, that there is a demand because there is a market when people want to come to UK. If that perception or that attitude can be taken away. Secondly, is the level of reception. I think one part that was left by South Africans is the fact that they are very obedient. They are very respectful. Whatever they do, the direction you take, they will comply, very compliant. But sometimes when you look at it, it's taken to the extreme when it comes to that. The last thing I think, to me, if you are to do a successful terrorism mechanism, is to understand the historical background of South Africa and the nature that it still has to build its own image within the African continent. And when you treat South Africa, you have to treat it as a gateway to Africa, not just as an entity on its own. And I think that's what remains critical. Hence, you will find the shift either to the African continent itself or to the question of Africa Pacific is the one that becomes the factor at the end of the day. So I think those are the key issues to me that needed to be factored in the report.
Well, well said. I don't know if anybody in the panel wants to add to that, but I think we've got a very clear picture that there's a problem here. But anybody want to give a final thought?
No, I think it's becoming a chicken and egg situation. We've seen markets which were previously big in terms of incoming, which have shrunk. And if we want to grow them again,
it's pretty clear how
the fundamentals are there for growth, but there are some severely restricting factors.
Yeah, and those thoughts are well made. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think at this point, because we've run a bit of a marathon this afternoon, we better draw it to a close. But just please give a final round of applause to our South Africa panel. Thank you very much. Thanks, and thank you all for being with us through the afternoon, those of you who were, and I look forward to seeing you again at WTM. But thanks for being here today. Thank you.